Yeah, it's the York Sports Report Show. You got it. With Jason York, your host. He's crazy. You gotta love him. He's a Hawks fan. That's right, a Hawks fan. Aaron Brunette, I love you. I want to marry you one day. Dave Bolin getting under the skin of Daniel Sedin last night. Dustin Byfuglien, well, he got a hat trick. What do you think of that, Roberto? Not too pleased, are you? It's the York Sports Report Show. Sit back and relax.
You got it. York Sports Report Show. Blackhawks 2, Vancouver 1. Everybody, I'm Jason York. Thanks for joining me on the York Sports Report Show. The Vancouver Canucks have hit a wall, and that wall is called Dustin Byfuglien. Vancouver Canucks lose last night to the Chicago Blackhawks. The Hawks take a 2-1 lead in the best of 7. Dustin Byfuglien with the hat trick last night. Chicago all over with their speed and their forechecking. Totally got underneath the skin of a few main key ingredients of the Vancouver Canucks. Dave Bolin had his mouth going as usual. Dave Bolin played a hell of a game last night. He got underneath the skin of Alexander Burrows, and more importantly, Daniel Sedin. Sedin kind of snapped a little bit. Burrows snapped completely. The one thing I will say this about Alex Burrows, what a rat, what a wimp. This guy starts punching David Bolin in the back of the head when Bolin's got his back turned. And these aren't little punches. This is at the back of the skull. So complete bonehead by Alex Burrows. I wouldn't even mind a game suspension. I thought that was just absolute bush on Alex Burrows' part. Now the Vancouver Canucks find themselves down 2-1 in this series. Chicago has found its speed, and this was the big factor against Nashville that I was concerned about. It just didn't seem like they had their legs. But it seems like Hossa and Keith and Seabrook and Patrick Sharp and Chris Versteeg all have found their legs. Jonathan Toews last night, 3 points. Kane, 2 points. The Hawks, I believe, had between 11 and 16 blocked shots. That's just a big boost for the Chicago Blackhawks. Byfuglien was the big factor last night. You wake up this morning here in Vancouver and there's a whole bunch of people starting to scream and cry. Yet actually the media somewhat did a pretty decent job of not entirely blaming all on the Blackhawks for apparently running Luongo. There wasn't gigantic runs into Luongo last night. I didn't see any, and I'm not trying to be biased. But Byfuglien showed up, and he got in Luongo's face. Let's face it, Vancouver Canucks defensemen are just not big enough. They're just flat out not big enough. They're powder cakes, totally. Kevin Bieksa took a shot at Byfuglien with 2 seconds at the end of the game. Look, I like Kevin Bieksa because he's a tough kid, okay? But that's just bush as well. I mean, Chicago is so under their skin now. Kevin Bieksa takes a run at Dustin Byfuglien. Take a run at him after he scored his second goal. Don't understand that one bit. Never ceases to amaze me. But the big question here in Vancouver, along the media the media's theme today is, do the Canucks have to get tougher? Do they have to get more speed? You can't make any more trades, and I know I'm being facetious and I'm being ignorant when I say that. But hey, the Canucks flat out are not faster than Chicago. I mean, Ryan Johnson was on a radio station today, one of their forwards who blocks 1 million shots a year, who's pretty gritty, not super gritty, but great in the face-off. But at the end of the day, he even said it. He goes, we know we can't run and gun with this team. So when you start hearing that from the other team, I mean, that doesn't fare well. Nobody on that team can move Dustin Byfuglien. Anyways, by the way, thumbs down to the GM Place security today. Went down there, thought maybe, possibly, I could maybe, and I'm not I'm not upset that excuse me, ferociously upset or crying any rivers here. But there was a bunch of kids out there, obviously playing hooky, and some dudes, some young 20-something crowds with their Hawks t-shirts and their hats and all that stuff. The bus pulls up. I was pretty lucky enough to get down there. They get off the bus, and there was a few players that were willing to give autographs. And I thought that's kind of cool. I just wanted to see if maybe, possibly, I could just get like 3 seconds and ask a couple of quick questions for the York Sports Report Show, or even just get a picture with Jonathan Toews, my favorite player. By the way, Kane just blew by everybody. Like, Kane didn't want to sign any autographs, none whatsoever. I'm not going to hate on the guy. maybe he's focused. Maybe he had a rough night with some ladies last night in Vancouver. Who knows? But that's not the issue. I mean, he's a professional. He doesn't have to sign anything. And I know, and actually there was a couple of kids that were a little bummed. But some of the players looked like they were willing to partake in that. And Vancouver's GM Place security just dove in there like they were going to get murdered or something. Just thumbs down to the GM Place security staff. Just a bunch of idiots. Big time. That's all I can say about that. But because when I was a kid growing up, and I know times have changed, but I was able to meet some of the nicest guys in the NHL. Pat LaFontaine, Mike Keenan, surprisingly, actually, I was able to have an interview with Mike Keenan at the Western Bayshore in the lobby. He came down, we sat for like 15 minutes, I was able to fire off questions. It comes down to approach, it comes down to timing, and it just comes down to what sort of mood they're in. But if you approach these guys like a bunch of banshees and all, they don't want anything to do with you. But some of the kids were somewhat sort of patient and tolerant with the guys boarding off the bus. Hossa was willing to sign some autographs. And the GM Place dude just came in there like a screaming fire, like the kid was from Iran or Iraq or something. It was just brutal. Just absolute brutal. And I was just like, what a goof you are, man. Kid's trying to get an autograph. He's got a Hawks t-shirt. Anyways, but back in the day, I was able to get pictures with Pat LaFontaine and all the Philadelphia Flyer players, Mike Keenan, Ronik Chelios, Steve Larmer, you know, and the security in the old Pacific Coliseum. They were fantastic. They had these god-awful, ugly red Price is Right jackets. Polyester, as thick as could be. And they had a gate there, whatever, you know, at waist level. But you're able to get a picture with your favorite player, talk to the player, ask him a question, get autographs, stuff like that. Not today, folks. And I know mentality of society has changed, but what a bunch of goofs at the garage, totally. Just a bunch of idiots. By the way, idiot fans last night decided to let their feelings show through, as usual. Vancouver people don't know how to handle their alcohol. They are just absolute idiots. But they start throwing beers at the Hawks and water bottles and all that stuff and beer glasses at the Hawks bench, and, you know, the security jumped in when they should there. The Vancouver police sort of, you know, hey, let's get these buffoons out of here. But it never ceases to amaze me that Vancouver Canuck fans, when they get the boots laid to them, and I know that this doesn't just happen in Vancouver. I'm sure this can happen in Philadelphia, maybe Boston. But I just that's what fired me up at the end of the game last night. You got Ben Eager sort of eyeing up some dudes over the glass, and it's like, I don't care how big the dudes are on the glass. You know, Ben Eager's a tough dude. You don't want to mess with Benny. But anyways, back to the game last night. What I'm
You got it, folks. More York Sports Report show coming up. And Jenny McCarthy, you are just flat out sexy.